It was here, in May of 1976, that Spira's first campaign took root. The American Museum of Natural History was conducting experiments to learn about hypo and hypersexuality in cats. The procedure called for drilling holes into different parts of the cat's brains to see what effect this had on their sexual performance with other cats and rabbits.
To the average person on the street, it just sounds totally absurd, and having their tax monies used for it, and it happening at the American Museum of Natural History, to which they had gone where they had never expected anything like this to be happening. It was just kind of a natural, and the fact that they've been doing this for years, and the fact that it's a venerable institution, and the fact that if they find the answer to the question they're looking for, it's not going to do anybody any good. So basically we had all the chips on our side. It was just something that was totally indefensible, and the only reason they could continue it is because nobody ever challenged it, nobody ever knew about it.
Though Spira was working full-time as a teacher, he began intensive research on the museum's cat lab. Using the Freedom of Information Act, he gathered every bit of information ever generated by the museum's experiments to try to figure out whether the data generated by the research had any useful applications. After months of trying to contact the museum's administrators to set up a meeting, Spira began his campaign with a full-page ad in the New York Times. It had enormous repercussions. He wrote an article for a local New York paper. This article was reprinted and received much attention. Then in May, Spira started organizing a series of protests.
And it varied from 10 people to 100 people to 1,000 people, the amount of people that showed up on the weekend. But it was always a demonstration every single weekend. And at the end of every demonstration, we went across the street to Central Park in the lawn and passed the bullhorn around and basically told people, hey, here's what's been happening. One of the things that we did is that we had a petition to stop the torture at the Museum of Natural History. And then we took all these petitions and we taped them together and made a big scroll, and then used the scroll basically to blockade the front of the Museum of Natural History. Police showed up. There was quite a police presence usually when we had larger crowds. And I think that helped energize things as well. And then they said they would arrest anybody who came into the museum with a sign. The museum had said that. So we had these T-shirts, and people wore the T-shirts and then just marched through the museum. They can't hardly ask these women to take their T-shirts off.
Spira contacted then Congressman Ed Koch in hopes of getting local politicians involved in the issue.
I got letters from people and telephone calls and complaining, and I thought to myself, I'll go up and look and see for myself. So I said, well, tell me something. I said, you take these cats and you put lesions in their brains, and after you have this deranged male cat with 2 holes in its brain, and you throw it into a dark room, and it mounts a rabbit? Yes. I said, well, how does the rabbit feel about this? And then I said, well, after you do this deranged cat in this dark room mounts a rabbit, what do you got? Silence. And then I said, how long have you been doing this? And she said, 20 years. And I said, 20 years? how much does this cost the government?
Spira continued his assaults through ads, articles, and demonstrations every weekend. He contacted every funder that the museum ever had to inform them about the experiments. Still, the Museum of Natural History refused to meet. As word about the cat lab spread, some museum members canceled their membership. One major benefactor cut the museum out of her will.
I think what won the campaign was all these elements pulled together. I don't think it was any one element. I think it was just absolutely necessary to do the full-page ad. It was absolutely necessary to have demonstrations every weekend. It was absolutely necessary to get these legislators to pressurize the National Institutes of Health. It was absolutely necessary to put the pressure on the city and on the state and on all the benefactors and all the donors. Basically, at one point, the museum itself would have just figured, hey, you know, it really ain't worth it, you know, to continue this. And also for them to realize, I think the other crucial thing is for them to realize that we're not going away. In other words, we're not going there for a week and then we're going to go dump on somebody else. We're going to stay there till it's finished, till it's over, till it's all over, till it's closed down.
From beginning to end, the campaign lasted 2 years. The closing of the lab was a milestone for the animal rights community. It marked the first time ever that public pressure had stopped animal research.
You know, I don't believe that you can focus on the tens of millions of animals in one shot as opposed to taking one very specific, very concrete experiment that the public can relate to and putting an end to it and using that basically as setting a pattern, you know, a pattern of that there's a requirement of accountability to the general public.